Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Healing Anxious Attachment podcast. My name is Johanna, I'm your host, and I'm happy to be dropping in with you for the first time in 2025. During the last weeks of last year and the first couple days of this year, I've received so many messages about this podcast, so I'm always so grateful to hear from you and get your reviews and your feedback. I think during the holiday time, people maybe had a bit more free time, and also with the new year energy that's just in the collective of people kind of being ready to make a change or make a shift in whatever direction, that can feel super contagious. So it's a beautiful time to reconnect to yourself, to feel into what you want, and then to direct your energy in that direction. And if you're here, then I'm assuming that one of the things that's important for you is healing anxious attachment, and probably how it feels more is coming back to yourself, feeling more confident in yourself, working with triggers, feeling peaceful and grounded in your body. And that's what I want to talk about today in this episode. I'm going to talk about what the healing journey really looks like and how you can heal your anxious attachment by the end of this year if you so desire. As we start this episode, I wanted to reintroduce myself because I probably haven't fully introduced myself since the first episode. You're probably familiar with my voice. If you've been listening to these in order, you maybe know that my name is Johanna, but I am a somatic therapy facilitator, an inner work guide, a life coach. I am trained in attachment repair, in somatic therapy, in shadow work, in inner child work, in Reiki and energy healing, and all of my tools and teachings are always guided towards a really holistic look at healing. My degree is also in human nutritional science, so really on every level I'm interested in the well-being of your body in terms of food and movement and nourishment, and I'm deeply interested, my offerings are more directed to the experience of your emotional body and your physical body in terms of the nervous system and the subconscious, because whenever we want to make a change, it is the subconscious that we often need to look at. If nothing else, it's the subconscious that's blocking us from getting there. So when I work with clients, and even in these episodes, I'm always speaking to the deeper layers, the patterns, the belief, the things that we are unconsciously thinking and doing without even realizing it. That's what's unconscious, right? So super interesting example of this. And at this point, I've done many sessions of somatic work with practitioners, on myself, so much analyzing of my psyche and my patterns that I can kind of see things and sometimes shift them immediately in real time, which is so cool. And once you practice, you will get to do this too. But I'll give you a simple example of how this can happen quickly and not need to be a whole emotional experience, which in the beginning it does. It does need to be that. But here's what happened. I was thinking about a friend of mine who just mentioned how she was getting horse riding lessons. And I noticed this feeling in my body of, oh God, I wouldn't want to get horse riding lessons because that must make the horse riding experience really intense really quickly. And that felt fearful and like it would get too hard and too intense too fast. And I thought, okay, that was interesting. That doesn't really have anything to do with how I feel about horses, but let me think about the lessons that I have wanted to take. So I started to think about piano lessons and hula hoop lessons, which is something that I'm actually pursuing. And I noticed the same twinge of fear that if I take lessons and if I have a teacher and that teacher has their presence on me, everything is going to become too intense, too fast, and I'm going to feel afraid and I'm going to fail. And that quickly linked me back to something that I have worked with already in depth in my psyche, which is the experience that I had when I was young that I was pressured to learn really quickly. One of my parents just didn't really have the awareness of probably how much context and intelligence a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old should have. So I was constantly expected to operate probably 3 or 4 years above my actual developmental age. And this created quite a intensity or rigidity in my system where it became very important for me to pick up on details super fast and become a really fast learner, because otherwise I would be met with an adult that was frustrated and impatient with me. So this is perfect coping style. Thank you to my biology for being able to cope in this way, but on a nervous system level, that did not feel good. I felt scared, I felt intimidated. I also had a figure skating coach who was also my baseball coach, because I lived in a small town, who had the same energy of like, learn quickly, don't make the same mistakes twice. And that's That's fine, that's okay, but it's the imprint that it left on my nervous system that is what I've worked on unwinding. So when this horse lesson topic came up and it gave me that same body response that felt super familiar to me, I was able to immediately get curious about why that felt that way, tether it back to what I already know about my experience in my subconscious, and then remind myself that not all teachers are like that. I'm allowed to ask to slow down. I'm allowed to ask questions. I'm allowed to be wrong. All of these things that I've had to learn and face the uncomfortable edge of, because in the past I was too scared to be wrong. I was too scared to say I didn't know what something meant. I was too scared to ask questions, and I've healed that within me. I've created safety in my body around that. So I could basically catch my old self, that little trigger, back up to reality instantaneously by reminding myself that just simply isn't true. That just isn't an experience I have to have anymore, that I can ask for what I need and it's all good. And the sensation immediately dissipated from my body. And this was probably an actual 15-second experience, but I'm sharing it to show you how this work can pay off so triggers are no longer so big or so mysterious, because sometimes we don't even know why we feel so overwhelmed or so anxious or so out of control because we don't have the context to link it back to what has happened. So when we do somatic work, when we do healing work, we start to build that map of ourselves and our experience, and sometimes all of that doesn't even matter anymore, and then we just get to be in who we are and what we know now. And that is bringing your subconscious into reality, basically bringing your unconscious up to date with what is consciously happening in your reality, which is that you are an intelligent, grown adult. So let me drive this and niche this straight into the topic that we're talking about today, which is what it would take to realistically become super secure in 2025. So the important thing with anxious attachment style is understanding that, like anything else, it's just a coping behavior that you learned when you were really young, right? So I just gave you an example of that. Depending on what your experience was with your caretaker, there was probably something missed, okay? There was a rupture, an attachment rupture or an attachment trauma between you and your parents, maybe one of them, maybe both of them. Maybe they invalidated your emotions, maybe they literally weren't around, maybe you were made to grow up really fast, you needed to be the big girl, be the responsible one who was helping taking care of your siblings or being responsible for things in the house. Maybe you became super hyper vigilant to the emotions of others because you had a parent who was really reactive and you felt like you needed to constantly be soothing them. Whatever was happening, you had no choice to walk away from that relationship, right? Now as an adult, we know, or we try to know, that if someone is treating us poorly, we should walk away from that relationship. As a child, you didn't have a choice because that person was also your sense of security and meeting your needs. So the reason that I point this out is that coping mechanism developed on purpose. It's like part of your survival response that is really smart, because if you didn't get it, if you couldn't like clue in, oh my gosh, I need to be this way so that my parent gets my needs met, then that could have been a really disastrous situation, right? Where the parent, can't handle you or doesn't meet your needs or something terrible happens. Like, the body and the mind will always adapt to try and make the situation the best for you at the time. So that happened at the time, and that got locked into your nervous system and your subconscious and created these beliefs that say, when this happens, I should act this way. And those are the beliefs that we want to work with to really understand what your anxious attachment beliefs are, because not everyone has the same anxious attachment beliefs. I've mentioned this in a couple episodes, but I have a quiz that's called Which Anxious Attachment Archetype Are You? And it has 4 different results. So I've worked with hundreds of women with anxious attachment, and I realized pretty quickly, based on a nervous system lens, that the experience of anxious attachment can look really different for different people. So taking this quiz, it's totally free, can give you a little bit more clarity on what nervous system default mode you're likely working with. Anyway, let me give you some examples because we want to uncover these beliefs. So we might have beliefs like, if I don't do what this person asked me, they're going to leave me. If I am annoying, I'm going to get broken up with. Men will only like me if I am agreeable and do everything for them. Men will only propose to me if I sleep with them 5 times a week. There are such a huge range of beliefs that I've heard come through my clients, even when they don't really realize it's a belief, when we start to dig a little bit deeper and even just free write journal what our beliefs are about men, about relationship. You can do this as a free association prompt, it's called. So just start with a prompt, love is, and just watch what your mind creates for you. Love is hard. Love is hard to find. There are no good men around. I can't find, you'll just see all of these negative beliefs that float to the surface. So that's what we need to first understand, at least do a small amount of exploration so we can see what we're working with. Other beliefs are going to pop up along the way, but that helps you to map what you're working with and what you're actually trying to rewrite and rewire in terms of healing. So let's say you've come up with 20 beliefs that you know no longer serve you. And this is the gap that we're healing. We talked about the nervous system responses and the coping mechanisms that you created as a child, which now, the reason that you're here, the reason that it feels painful is because it's not actually aligned to who you are or who you want to be in relationship or how you want to feel. So now your adult mind is having this constant battle with your patterns in your subconscious and your nervous system that's been running on autopilot for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So we want to go back into the nervous system to show the nervous system that this is no longer what's happening. It's like the nervous system learned its perceived rules and then didn't ask any more questions. It was just like, okay, this works. I'm going to completely put a mask over my eyes and just keep running in this circle on autopilot. There is a part of your body that is not conscious to the fact that things are different, that you are an adult now, that relationships can be different. So we have to take our consciousness into our body through presence, through feeling, through compassion, and rewire and re-show our body that there is safety here within this vessel, within your physical vessel. So we have our beliefs. Another major point of opportunity for working with our anxious attachment style is working with our triggers. So these are the situations or the type of situations where you notice that your body feels super activated. That might feel like a shutdown response. It might feel like really not uncontrollable anger is not what I'm trying to say, but like the anger doesn't match the situation. It could feel like panic, overwhelm, fear. You probably know what being triggered feels like, but starting to see the patterns within where these triggers show up. So I just had a student share with me 4 of her trigger situations super clearly. And she did this because within the Becoming Secure membership, I have a training that's called How to Heal Your Triggers. And what she shared with me is that her biggest triggers are shifts in a relationship dynamic. So basically when someone is giving a lot of energy and then it shifts or their communication changes, she feels super sensitive to that and it leaves her feeling out of control, this fear of losing closeness. Another trigger was communication expectations not being met. So she notices within herself that she wants to communicate a lot, but if someone is leaving or she feels them slipping away, that's really triggering. A third example was emotionally shut down partners. So she tries to communicate, they're not available, they shut down, and then that makes her system freak out. And her fourth one was people being late. So when I read that, I immediately saw that actually those first 3 triggers are probably all the same system in her body. So let's review them again. Shifts in relationship dynamic, communication expectation not being met, and emotionally shut down partners. You can maybe feel how all of this has this pulling away from us energy. So either the person that we are trying to relate to or give our love to or get love from is closing, shutting down, or pulling away. Even though those were 3 different examples, it's going to be the same response in her body, which is probably fear, panic, what did I do wrong, and however it feels in her body, which could be different than yours. She might feel it in her throat or chest, you might feel it in your stomach. It's actually the same thing to work with. So what's great about that is that we can heal those things simultaneously, because usually we could, even if we have 15 different things that trigger us, they probably fall into 2 or maximum 3 different categories of what our nervous system, our more primal body, thinks is going on. And the primal body is always worried about fear, loss, abandonment, and ultimately death. We could maybe argue that it all comes down to the fear of death at the end of the day, and if we follow these threads all the way to the bottom, it will always be that I'm going to be alone. And then what? And then I'm going to die. I'm going to not have any friends. And then what? And then I'm going to die. I'm going to be hated. And then what? Then I'm going to be alone. And then what? And then I'm going to die. So there is value in this exploration of what do I think the trigger, is that the right question? There is a value in the exploration of why is this upsetting to me when I can consciously understand it's not a big deal. So it is worth really exploring what the ultimate fear or story is around the trigger, because that is the key to uncovering what we need. So now we've looked at our limiting beliefs, we've looked at our triggers, and those are all going to point into what we need to feel safe, what we need to heal, and also what our boundaries are. You already know that understanding your own needs and boundaries is something that is so important on this journey. So that's going to be a crucial step. And once you know what that is, and you know your boundaries so intimately that it's just a clear yes or no, then you'll be able to make easier choices that are less about the other, less about people pleasing, and you'll feel way more in alignment with who you are. Once we've found that center within ourselves, which I'm sure you probably feel maybe a lot of the time, and it's just not in relationship. Maybe it's fleeting, but you do have these moments where you're like, yeah, I got this. Yeah, I do have value. Yes, I am confident, and it just feels freaking amazing. That is the energy we want to be able to cultivate and come back to easier and easier and quicker and quicker. It shouldn't be weeks between that feeling. You know, your body, as much as it's made to create these coping behaviors of people pleasing and fawning and everything that kept you alive, it's also made to feel love and acceptance and safe and peaceful and secure. So you have the framework and the blueprint within you already. It's just about cleaning up and working with and looking at and bringing love and compassion to the parts of you that forgot that. So never forget that the blueprint for being secure and actually being any and all of who you want to be is already within you. We do the healing work, we do the inner work to untangle the beliefs and the thoughts and the crunchy part and the tension that is within us that is driving us to forget that that is your nature. And that is just my favorite work to do, because with every one of those untangled knots or dropping the shield or letting the film and the smoke or the brain fog just clear away from our experience, we automatically become more of who we are. We automatically become liberated. So your journey to being secure in 2025 is a journey of that. So your journey to being secure by the end of the year or sooner is a journey of that remembering. And of course, within that comes practice, right? So you're going to do all this uncovering work. You're going to start to get more connected to who you are and what you need. You're going to start to bring your energy back into your body. And then these beliefs that you're rewriting and reframing and redeciding that love is easy, that you are worthy of receiving, that there are amazing men everywhere, that you're allowed to have safe, beautiful relationships. You have to practice believing that in your day-to-day experience. And I think I was talking to a client the other day, and we talked about how we can sort of romanticize the big transformation and who we're going to be when we're secure, and we forget that it's the moments in the grocery store when we need to speak up for what we want or ask for what we need at work or communicate something to one of our parents or our family members. Those are actually the moments that count, and those are the moments that make a difference. It's not always in the meditation or pulling an oracle card or, being in a yoga class. Those things are beautiful and those are like amazing tools, but the real shifts happen in the moment to moment experience of what is our mind thinking, what behaviors are being driven, and where do I know better to stop this pattern, to self-soothe my body when I need to, and to choose a different way. So I trust that this is landing with you. I trust that you're feeling encouraged. What I want to know is if you feel like having more support in this journey would be helpful. Think real-time support, somatic practices that are guided live. That would be something that I would love to offer you. So if you've been listening to other episodes of this podcast, I talk about my Becoming Secure membership a lot. Becoming Secure last year was something called a content membership, which meant that members got a new video every week. So I would record a video and I would publish it for them, and then I would email them and say, your video is ready. And it was usually 15 to 25 minutes, and there was a new one every single week. which was amazing. But the more that I got to know the women in the space and ask them, how can I make this more effective? How can I make this better for you? Basically, everyone was like, I want to get to know the other women here. I want to have live calls. I want to be able to ask you questions in real time. And by the end of the year, I really felt like, yes, I want to offer it this way too. I'm kind of sick of it being a one-way channel like this podcast. There's been over 100,000 downloads on this podcast, which I'm so thrilled. But sometimes I'm like, I want to talk to you in real life. I know you're out there listening, and I just want to have this conversation with you in real life. I'd be so happy to talk, to exchange and to commune together. So Becoming Secure in 2025 is 2.0 version, which is actually mainly revolving around live calls. So if you join the membership this year, you will have access to 2 live calls with me a month. They're at different times, just so we can cover the US time zone primarily, but also make sure that the European time zone is covered and the Asia time zone is covered. The first call every month is a full workshop, so it's a 90-minute workshop. We have a different theme every month. So the theme this month is an attachment deep dive. Next month is healthy relationships, healthy relating, communicating in relationships. March is going to be body wisdom. April is the feminine archetype exploration, so we have so much to cover. The second call of each month is a women's group / Q&A, so that's where you get to also be guided in a practice, to drop in with me, to ask your questions. And honestly, even if you don't have a question, these are always so fruitful because you get to come on and hear the other women's questions, and it's just a nice sister time to hang out and feel each other and feel supported and get supported. And it's amazing. So I'm so happy to be expanding the membership this way. And until the end of January, I'm offering a majorly discounted annual option. So normally the membership is just month to month, $77 a month. Right now, you can save 40% on the entire year by signing up for the entire year, which means we get to work together and journey together for 12 months. You'll be super supported. And you just get to have a place to keep coming back to practice, to drop in, to be in your journal, to be in your inner work. And I know it's the live accountability that really makes a difference. We all have probably hours and hours of course or pre-recorded content sitting in our Google Drives. I know me and all my friends do. And it's just not working anymore. And we want to be in communities with other people that we already know are like-minded, and we want to have accountability. So that is why we're making this really big change to live calls. And I would love to invite you in. If last year you thought, I don't know if the membership is enough for me, consider this a huge upgrade in terms of support. Or if you've just been waiting on it and now you feel excited about being live on a call, having a workshop every month, and having that second integration Q&A call, then I would be happy to have you. So I'm going to leave the link in the show notes. As per usual, you have until the end of January to get in on the annual rate, and I'm also going to be giving some special bonuses to the group that signs up for the annual experience as well, because it will be really nice to have a contained group that comes with us the whole way along. If that's not for you and you want to sign up monthly, you totally can, but you're going to save a ton and also basically get 5 months free by signing up for the annual rate. I will leave it at that. I'm so happy to have you here, to continue having you here if you've been listening to the episodes, to welcome you here if you are new, and I'm looking forward to journeying with you in 2025 and hopefully meeting you in real life in Becoming Secure. You totally got this, and I cannot wait to see you in your power. Chat soon. Bye-bye.